I'm going to get the bubbles. And welcome to Monday. It's another VTTV Monday. Say hello, Marco.
Hello, Marco.
What have we got coming up? Oh, should we just look at the trailer?
Look at the trailer.
Okay.
Coming up tonight on Vape Trolls TV, Gillian Golden gives us an update of what's happening in Ireland. Dave Dorn, Marco and Matt all give Dave Kitson what they think is the ideal tank for him. Dimitris Agrafiotis is here. He's going to give us a rundown of what happened in China. Matt Gales is here with a review of the new Kangatech sub-tank replacement. And we've got the news from around the world. All this and more tonight on Vape Trolls TV.
And there we are. So we've got a bit. We've got, well, you just saw what we got, so there's no point in going over it again, is there? Marco, you trying to say something?
No, I'm just saying it's packed.
Absolutely packed.
Jam-packed.
Jam-packed.
You can't put anything else in it. It's so jam-packed, you can put a lid on it and sell it. It's just jam.
So let's have a bit of a roll call before we move on. So obviously you have myself and Marco, as usual. And we have, let's see, we've got Mr. Dorn. Mr. Dorn going to say anything?
We do. I do. We are. I'm here. Yes. I'm in a production role tonight, so, carry on.
And we have Mr. Kitson.
Evening up.
And last but not least, Dimitri. I'm not even going to try and pronounce your surname.
You're fired.
Oh, all right then. Bye.
I ran all the way from work to be on here with you. You should at least know my last name, for crying out loud.
You're going to have to give me Greek lessons.
Yeah, you should at least pretend to be grateful, Matt.
It's not difficult, man. It's Dimitris Agrafiotis.
No. It's Dimmy the Greek.
Give that guy a raise.
Marco, take an extra 50%.
Yeah, it's of nothing. Great. Fantastic.
You're welcome. Right, we need to crack on with the news, don't we?
Yeah, let's get the news.
Okay. I'll play the sting. And that was a sting. So, Marco, what are we looking at first tonight?
Well, what are we looking at, Matt? We've got a few stories. I think you're going to bring the Belgium story up first.
There is the Belgium story.
Yes, I've got it in front of me. And Belgium to legalise e-cigarettes. Not that they're illegal now, strangely. But yes, by placing his signature under a new royal decree, King Philip will be instrumental in bringing in legislation that will legalise electronic cigarettes in Belgium. The new legislation was needed because until now e-cigarettes inhabited a grey zone of Belgium legislation. The link will be going into our show comments page, so you can have a look at that. It's pretty much as it is there. There's no more to that story. The governing Flemish Christian Democrats had wanted taxes to be levied on e-cigarettes. That's all. It's all about that, isn't it? It's all about tax in the end. It's not about public health. It's not about something that's better for you. It's all about how much money the governments can rake in from something that they're only getting VAT from in this country, for instance.
So,
but yes.
So the question I'm going to ask is the TPD actually going to come into effect at all in Belgium then?
Well, that's an interesting question. Mr. Dorn, what do you think?
It's actually because of the TPD that e-cigs have been liberalised and legalised in Belgium. Had the TPD not existed, the likelihood is they would have maintained their current status or their former status for a period of time. It's one of the very few good things that have come out of the TPD, because the likelihood is that if and when, I'd like to think when we get rid of Article 20, they'll maintain their legality, because that's going to be one genie that's very difficult to put back in the bottle.
So
Yes.
moving on then, we got some more Totally Wicked news, haven't we?
Yes, hold on. Let me just get to that one. Yes, how will the TPD affect DIY juicers? Was on the TW blog this week. And it's an interesting one, this one, because certain parts of the TPD affect DIY juicers, makers, like myself, and certain parts don't. And what they're saying here is that, first off, we all know that e-liquid will not be available in nicotine strengths higher than 20 milligrams, and that includes nicotine you're going to buy for your mixing, unless it's got a medical license. And yeah, so all bottles containing nicotine e-liquid cannot be larger than 10 mils. So you won't be able to go and buy your 54 milligram or your 75 or 72, in my case, in litre bottles. It's not going to happen anymore. But there is this period of grace, so it comes into effect this May, but then there is a year, so it's May 2017, where all stock has to be sold. If you go to the next one, Matt.
I have done.
You have done. Wicked. Yeah. So PG, VG and flavour concentrates are zero nic, so they are unaffected by the TPD. So they can be sold in larger, more economical bottles and need not be tested. So they can sell as much diacetyl and acetylpropanol loaded flavourings as people want. Not Totally Wicked, of course. We're talking about people who sell those kind of laced liquids. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, really. You'll still be able to get your flavourings, but you won't be able to buy nicotine any stronger than 20 milligrams or in any bottle larger than 20 mils. So if you've got a chest freezer, it would be handy to whack some in there now. Hopefully, if we can get this article put where it should be, then everything will be hunky-dory. But, as you know, we have gone thus far and had these things imposed by the marvellous European Parliament. So we have to live with it for now.
Okay, and we have a little bit of clarification from Wales, apparently, where Mark Drakeford, and those in chat refrain from spitting, Mark Drakeford has clarified what a wet pub means, and you can indeed still serve your pickled eggs and your packet of crisps and your pork scratchings in a wet pub. And
ooh, pickled eggs.
I have like a pickled egg. So yeah, that's up on the Wales Online there. We covered this in quite detail on Thursday, so we're not going to join in it too much tonight. So there we are, just flicking through there. And finally, apparently, someone got an e-cig stuck up their bum.
Yes, I fell on it, honest, Mike tells medics. Yes, now, I saw this earlier because Dimitris put it on his Facebook, and I hadn't seen that story before. It was in the Sunday Sport, allegedly. I like the tagline there, anus. I thought that was a computer company. Oh no, that's Asus. Yes.
Any story that has anus with it, for me, is by my book. I'll tell you that right now. That's a win-win.
I would have loved to be in a fly on the wall in action emergency, but there you go. Now, my only concern was, I wonder if it was a variable voltage device.
Oh.
Don't know.
Oh.
There are some times I despair of you, Marco.
I'm looking at my shelf here, and I've got a thing called the huge ass mod.
Yes. Well, the fat boy. Anyway, so that was the news.
That was the news.
That was the news. Play the sting.
You do the sting again. Okay, fair enough.
Why not?
Okay then. So we got a little bit of update on vaping in Ireland, haven't we? Dave, do you want to introduce this one, or?
Who, me?
Yes.
Well, right, now, if you don't know, if you've never heard of Gillian Golden, you definitely should have. Gillian is a cracking girl. She heads up IVVA over in Ireland, a tireless advocate for e-cigs, and she last week decided to bring us an update of how things are then. Now, if you've ever been affected by the Cadbury's caramel ad, grab a tissue. Enjoy.
Hi everyone, my name is Gillian Golden. I work with the Irish Vape Vendors Association, and I'm going to give you a very quick, very rushed policy update. Our Department of Health do these Health of the Nation surveys, and in the most recent one published, our smoking rate has actually gone down over the last few years. No surprises there. It now sits at around 19%. This one was the first one that made such a large mention of vaping. We've got a long way to go, but 50%, I think that's a good figure. Interestingly enough, e-cigs have overtaken NRT products for the first time. So the Tobacco Free Ireland document is what sets out Ireland's tobacco control policies with our end game figure by 2025. Harm reduction is in there. It has a really good harm reduction policy statement, but interestingly enough, it only refers to NRT, which is really, really strange. The annual report that they published in 2014 is kind of an update on where the policies are now and what's left to do. That mentions the retailer's licensing bill, which vape vendors will now have to comply with. Announced in June 2014. The consultation happened in January last year, and that's where we sit in 2016. That consultation document, that was interesting. NMNDS, what is that? So in the bill, a licensing system for retailers, ban on underage sales, and then different kind of suspension periods for retailers and fines and name and shame and all sorts. The Tobacco Free Ireland document also sets out policies for tobacco-free campuses. And when you look at the HSE tobacco-free campus policy and you read about how it includes e-cigarettes, it does have a few questionable statements in that policy. Now, if you're in a hospital, you might see one of these posters. The one on the left, I think, is the original one. The one on the right is the updated version. If you're wondering what that text in the bottom is, I have searched Article 8 of that document, second-hand smoke. So we have a long way to go with that policy. Now, a lot of colleges and universities here have also included that smoking ban on campus, but as you'll see, e-cigarettes are also included. Next up is the HICWA report that was announced recently. So the Health Information and Quality Authority, they look at the quality, safety standards of different aspects of our health system. They also do these things, health technology assessments, where they take a look at new technologies, new things for the healthcare sector, and basically see if they work and if they're cost effective for our health system. Now, they're looking at cessation methods here, but it's really, really interesting that they've included e-cigarettes for the first time. And in their terms of reference are really interesting. They're looking at the cost effectiveness of smoking interventions, cessation interventions, and it's going to be really interesting what they come out with. The fact that the announcement includes the fact that they're looking at this, even though they see that the evidence is only evolving, we see that that is a really, really positive step, and we're looking forward to it. Next up, TPD. So our Department of Health Office of Tobacco Control issued a public consultation in October. Very quick consultation period, only 30 days, only looking at the discretionary measures, very limited in the replies that were made. It was only looking at the fees, the warning labels, and online and cross-border sales. Interestingly, on the warning symbols, here Irish has to be included. Those were our choices of two statements. We obviously took the shorter one. I'm not going to read it out in Irish. I don't speak Irish, but good luck fitting that on a 10ml bottle with all the rest of the labelling. Now, the Advertising Standards Authority last year did a public consultation where they changed the advertising code. It's broadly in line with the UK code, not a lot of differences, and that comes into force in March. The Health and Safety Authority here they're the people who look at things like the CLP requirements, packaging requirements, and although I do hear reports that perhaps in other countries, in the UK, etc., there is different CLP requirements for different nicotine strengths, we have been told in person by the Health and Safety Authority that the CLP applies to all nicotine strengths. That is under review at the moment. There is an issue with compliance here in Ireland. A lot of vendors are still coming around to the idea that these are things that need to be complied with. There's also the issue of enforcement and how much the HSA are going to go ahead with enforcement on this. Now, these are all things that we are trying to bring influence on, especially in stakeholder engagement, really, with the Department of Health and with the subcommittee, the Joint Subcommittee on Health and Children. Stakeholder engagement here it's a difficult thing to garner. We are making inroads, though. We had some positive meetings recently where I think people are beginning to come around to the idea that e-cigarettes are a good thing for smokers, and I think the Public Health England report had a lot to do with that. The unfortunate thing is that we are heading for a general election soon. Our Parliament is due to be dissolved probably before the end of next week, if not the week after. So the people that are in the Health Committee now may not be the people that are in the Health Committee after the next Parliament starts sitting. But I think it's important for all retailers, all vapers in Ireland to talk to their election candidates, make them aware of vaping, make them aware of what vaping has done for them and their family and their health, make them aware of the issues around vaping. And I think we have a long way to go in Ireland. Where I would say about 3 to 4 years behind what's happening in the UK in terms of acceptance, in terms of public health acceptance. We're still seeing an awful lot of negative reports coming out in Irish media with not that lot of counteracting the bad science and the bad media reports. So it is to be continued. That's all I have for the moment. Thank you for listening. Hope it wasn't too boring. If you want to follow me on Twitter, that's my own personal Twitter name. If you want to follow the IVVA, there we are. Give us a follow. And yeah, thanks for listening.
And there we go. I hope you all enjoyed that. I saw a few comments in chat there. Do we have time to linger on this, or do we have to crack on? Marco, you're in charge of the schedule. Where have you gone?
You can have 1 minute and 30 seconds.
1 minute and 30 seconds?
Yes.
Dave, you got anything to add to that piece of VT there?
Bottom line on it is, really, as far as Ireland is concerned, they need as soon as possible to generate a consumer advocacy organisation. If that was to be called NNA ERA Ireland, that would be fabulous. There are people over there that are capable of doing it. I just would like to see them get it all together. And then there's consumer advocacy as well as industry advocacy going on, because they're in a parlous state over there. Do bear in mind, when the TPD all got started, who was sitting in the president's chair? Ireland. Say no more.
Can I just add a couple? Just
you go for it.
Here, I just want to congratulate Jillian again. I think she's a marvelous asset, not only for her country but for all vapers across the world. I think she's just a marvelous person. She's very well educated, and I know the struggles that she has gone through this last year, because I feel them here across the pond as well. but she's stuck with it, and great job that she's doing over there.
She is. I've got to say, she's one of my heroes. She really is. Great advocate, and a nice girl and all. Like her a lot.
And she's in chat.
I know. I've just seen.
Yes.
Even better.
She can drink under the table too, which is very rare.
Right, moving swiftly on then, because we've got a lot to cover tonight. I've been having a look at a new tank, well, sort of new. So I'm going to get this out of the way, and then we can have a little bit of a chat with Dimmy. Hello, it's mildly foggy, so that must mean it's time for another tank review. Hey! Specifically another sub-tank type thing, or in this case, a top tank. So, as some of you may know, and I make no bones about it, I'm quite fond of the Kanga sub-tank. I've had pretty much all the iterations of it, from the original, which was the big monster 7mm thing, to the mini. I've got a couple of nanos, and I've got the plus, which is the original one but redone slightly, so you don't need to take the top. Yeah, whatever, that's out the scope. So anyway, let's have a quick look at the box. Here is the box. Oh, you want more? Okay. Here's more of the box. Right, let's take that bit off. Let's take that bit off. That's where the tank would live. Let's take that away. There's a little warning triangle telling us to fill in and close the top cover immediately. There's a pamphlet manually thing. There's a filling guide, using guide, whatever you want to call it, to prime your wicks. There's an authenticity thing. There's a bag of cotton. There's your obligatory blue screwdriver, some screws, and wire, you know, for the rebuildable bit. There's the rebuildable bit, and there is the, what size is that? What resistance is that thing? Let's have a look. 0.5 ohm Canfor coil. There we go. That's the box. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take it off this thingamajig here, and just the avoidance of doubt, that is the resistance of the pre-installed nickel coil, which is 0.18, probably 0.2, I'd imagine it says on the coil. Right, let's take that off. Here is the tank. So it comes with this plastic drip tip, mouthpiece, whatever you want to call it, which is removable, and you can put your standard 510 piece in there. They cheaped out a little bit because it used to come with a metal one. At least all the ones that I've purchased have. I don't know if they've revised that recently or whatever. This is where you take the top off to fill it, which we'll get to in a bit. Here is the airflow control. If you're used to sub-tanks, this is no surprise to you at all. So there it is, fully open. Let's give that a spin. And there is what looks to be about maybe a 1.5mm hole. And I suppose that's probably about 1 mil. And then you spin it right round again, and you're back to the full wide open. And that is of course repeated on the other side as well. So inside, what have we got? Inside we've got the NI200 coil it comes pre-installed with. It's a vertical coil, and if you can make out there, you possibly can't. It just looks like a bubble of e-liquid on the top. Interestingly now is the way the wicking ports are set up. So you've got the chuffing big one there, you've got a teeny tiny one there, and then you've got a chuffing big one again, but there's nothing on that side. So you've got 3 wicking holes. Right, now I have tested this. I don't have one to hand right this exact moment, but you know the square coils that the sub-tanks came with, or you can buy, they fit in here perfectly. They work no problems at all. So if you're a sub-tank user and you've got a lot of spare coils, you can use them, no problem. So that's a plus. On here we've got the this is the top filly jobby. So there we go. You've got some decent size fill ports there, so you can get your dripper nozzle pipette thing down there. You can get a snipe nose bottle or whatever you like, and there's some O-rings that seal it all in. So that's pretty much it. Now if you're used to a sub tank, this is really no different. You've got the Kangatech logo there on the bottom. It does say top tank. Interestingly, actually, and I'm probably boring you sensitive to this, let's just flatten that so you can actually see it. The device on the picture isn't quite the same as the device you get. Notice the knurling on there is a lot finer. really, I'm just saying things for the sake of it at this point. But yeah, let's leave that. Nope, that one. Right, there we go. So there we are. Back to me. It is a sub tank with a top filling port. That's what it is. It's there's no real surprises in this at all. If you've used a sub tank, yeah, you're going to know exactly how this is going to vape. The only difference is the addition of the top filling. Now, seems they've actually sacrificed a little bit of e-liquid capacity with this. Now, the original sub tank mini, of which I've got one here, and actually, before I let's just go for another tangent. Let's just compare the sizes. Well, it's not a tangent because I'm kind of getting to this. There we go. Right, so the original sub tank is possibly half a mil taller. It's got a bigger drip tip as well. Mouthpiece, chuff piece, whatever you want to call it. All right, I pick in chat, I'm picking fault in that. Whatever. So yeah. Now the original sub tank mini was 4.5 mil in capacity, e-liquid wise. This is 4 mil. So you've yeah, I mean, granted, it's about maybe a bit less, about half a mil in difference in actual physical size. But of course, they've added this assembly on the top here for filling. So that's, you know, that's going to decrease the capacity ever so much, ever so slightly much, whatever. But yeah, it vapes well. Let's vape it. Oh, hang on, yeah, because I took the coil off, didn't I? It is the same coil. Thank you. Now this is 82% VGE liquid, 6 milligram, and it's lemon refresher, and it's very tasty. However, no trouble with wicking this at all. I've also used the rebuildable section. I've had this for, what's the time now? Yeah, okay, so I've had this for pretty much exactly 24 hours. So 24 hours ago it turned up, and I've been using it solidly since. I've had no leaking issues at all, even with the rebuildable section using the same liquid, no problems. So that's all good. I'm currently running it at 570 degrees Fahrenheit at 40 watts to start with, so yeah, it's working well. Now, one problem I have got with this is, out of the box, the coil installed in the device was the nickel coil. Why they didn't put the Canfor coil in the standard is beyond me, because, you know, a new user could potentially go, oh, I like the look of that, and the guy in the shop could be saying, that's good, but then the guy in the shop should actually point out that, hang on, that's got a nickel coil in it, you maybe want to change that out if you're on the device you're using. But if you're not using a temperature control device and you put on a nickel coil, you could potentially put too much power to it and pop it, or, you know, whatever. So erring on the side of caution, I prefer it if the Canfor coil was installed by default. Yeah, I know that's still 0.5 ohms, but, you know, it's, if you're using it on, maybe someone picks this up and uses it on an ice stick or something, you know. And I do know that the sub tanks are a very popular choice now with relatively new users. A couple of people at work, they're not what you consider to be full-on hobbyist users. I mean, one of the guys getting there, yeah, fair play, but they both use sub tanks, and they both really, really like them. So they are very much, in my eyes now, a mainstream product. So let's talk price. I paid £29.99 UK pounds for this, plus the shipping on top, which, you know, is pretty much the standard going rate for these tanks, really. There's not really much else I can tell you about it. It's a sub tank with a top filling port. I've got a little bit of room in there. I can possibly fill this up. I was looking for the juice I was using. So yeah, I've taken the top off, and you just simply pop your bottle in. And yes, really, and I know this is not a TPD compliant bottle, but then I'll mix my own. So what do I care? Well, I do care, you know. But so yeah, you can fill this up quite nicely. You can fill it up to the full 4 mil with no issue at all. There we go. Simple to fill up. You can bottom fill it if you prefer. I don't know why you would, but you could. Nothing stopping you, basically. Except you probably won't get the same amount of capacity. You probably won't get the same capacity in there if you just the bottom fill. But that's pretty much wraps it up there, really. So what do I think of it? It's a sub tank or a top tank, and I like it. There we go. There we go. That was the top tank, and as you gathered, I quite liked it because it's a sub tank that you can feel from the top. Yeah, there we go. Let's have a vape on it. You might see some more of this later because I'm that fond of it. Anyway, this is a Chinese tank made in China. We know someone who's been to China recently.
Seamless.
Yeah, well, it would be if we didn't say that.
Wow, what a transition. About that all week.
Yeah, I did, actually.
Yes, that was my third trip to China, by the way. My last trip there, again, with my buddy Phil Busardo. To kind of understand the background, though, of what we accomplished on this trip, it actually started last year. So this has been in the works for exactly 1 year from when we started to approach the Chinese manufacturers to try to get them to come together for the greater good of vaping. So last year when me and Phil visited and spoke at the Sevilla conference, we wanted to get a study funded for a protocol on efficiency and consistency of nicotine delivery. Why? Well, for you guys over there on the TBD, you know why. Because of what the regulators were asking. And of course, for us here in the United States, the 2007 grandfather date poses a huge problem on the new generation devices. In fact, I spoke about this with you, David, last year when we were talking about it, and it kind of initiated what we were trying to do with this protocol, right?
Yeah, I well remember the conversation, and I was quite pleased to see that it had borne fruit and come to fruition, indeed. And the seeds of the mighty oak have well and truly been planted there.
Yeah, and it took a while because something that maybe a lot of vapers don't understand is that for a study to be accepted and peer-reviewed and published, it takes a long time. Anybody can just post something up there, but to be taken seriously, it has to be done through the proper channels. And unfortunately, we couldn't find any funding here in the United States. I did ask around to several manufacturers, but we did find the funding from the Chinese manufacturers, and some of the Tennessee Smoke-Free Association vendors threw some money into this study, which cost approximately $75,000 to perform. So the reason why we wanted to do that study is because everything that China produces now, and especially the big four that launched this, which is Aspire, Kangar, Anakin, and Smoke, those are the four companies that launched this initiative in China, they don't produce first-generation devices anymore. So everything that they produce is second and third generation open systems, and it's what us, the vapers, and what works really good is the key here, because the older generation devices simply don't satisfy smokers. So we went there. They did fund the study. About 7 manufacturers participated in funding it, and finally we were able to release the results. Now the Chinese work a little bit different, okay? Because everybody asks, why isn't China in the fight? Why aren't they helping? They have a big stake at this, and they understand they have a big stake. But you have to understand that this is a completely different culture in the way that they operate. So they want to see results. So before I could go back and ask them for the second stage is what we accomplished now, I had to produce results. And when Dr. Frasalinos finally was able, well, we finished the study 6 months ago, but when we were able to submit it to Addiction, which is one of the biggest and most recognized journals for publication, it took a while. There was some back and forth, changing some of the language. The peer reviewers were asking for a few more things from the people that did the study. And finally, they accepted it. And not only they accepted it, very rarely will they do a PR release on a study, and they did with this particular one. Now, the results on this, I will do a video in the future and kind of give you a little bit more in-depth of what exactly the study did. But the result of it, in a nutshell, is that second and third generation atomizers, and we tested the Kanger EVOD, the Sub tank, and the Aspire Nautilus tank. Those tanks perform in delivering consistently and efficiently nicotine to the user. Not only did they perform within the bracket of acceptable for medical nebulizers, but they were better than first generation closed vapor products, and they were on par with the nicotine the Nicotrol inhaler, which is actually a medical device that delivers nicotine to the user. So that was extremely important for us to show for a couple reasons. Number one, now we have a protocol, right? So in the EU, where they're asking, we don't know what these people are vaping and how much nicotine they're getting, bullshit, right? We know exactly, and not only do we know, but it's consistent. Because the test not only tested new coils through 3 sets of 20 puffs, but they also tested the same coil. So we took 3 sets of 20 puffs using the same coil, and the nicotine delivery was really good. So now we have for the regulators a protocol to test the efficiency of nicotine delivery, and also we have proof that open generation, second generation, third generation open systems are good at delivering nicotine versus what was available in 2007. So that was the result. It was good, basically, what I'm trying to say. So we were able to present this to the Chinese manufacturers and thank them for financing it. And now we're moving on to the next stage. And for us, the next stage is how do we build a relationship with them where they trust us in order to finance some of the battles that we're having. And before we get into the EU and the TPD, because I did get a lot of comments when we were there and we were making the presentation on my Facebook and on my social media and on Phil's as well too, make sure you tell them about the TPD. Well, of course we mentioned the TPD, but let's be honest, we can't save the world. You guys are going to have to do your part as well too, just like we're doing our part here in the United States. So the imminent threat here obviously is the FDA regulations, which are currently at the OMB. So we're a very critical stage here of what we need to do, and that's where I concentrated most of my focus in my presentation. Basically what we did is we presented the hardships that the manufacturers are going to have and the burdensome and the onerous regulations that they're going to have trying to file a pre-market tobacco application with the FDA for their products, which basically means that they can't apply. There's no way that their products would first of all, it would be very costly for each individual company to do that, and even so, it's very hard to get a pre-market application through. And even if you do get it for a tank, if the liquid doesn't make it, your tanks are pretty much worthless. They have to go hand in hand. We have to get good liquid and good tanks to be able to keep the industry going along. So they after we had the discussion and we have the presentation, led by the Big Four, and I keep saying that because I do want the vapers that are listening to this or are going to listen to the replay to please put out a thank you on social media for these companies. Aspire, Innikin, Kanger, and Smoke. These are the 4 leading companies that got this thing started, and it's very important for me for vapers to show their appreciation and just send them a thank you and say, hey, thank you for taking the charge for this, because they were able to bring in 100 other manufacturers into that conference that day when I spoke, and they sat down and listened to me and understand the urgency of doing something and creating a coalition so they can share the expenses. So again, with these 4 manufacturers, they created a group called Sevia USA, which is will be a nonprofit association here in the United States that is going to represent the Chinese interests, and it's also going to be a gateway of funding for the various critical steps that we have upcoming here with the regulation. One of the biggest complaints that I've heard from the Chinese manufacturers was, okay, well, we're going to spend money. Where's it going? They want to see, just like they can produce, a device in a minute and 20 seconds down an assembly line. That's how they like their money to work as well too. I heard a couple of the manufacturers there that were members of SFATA last year, and they just didn't know what was going on. They were given money, and they weren't getting any updates. They don't see where the money is going to, even if it's working. The Chinese need to be very well schooled, trusted, and be able to invest into an advocacy that's going to have some results for what they're putting in, and that's our goal with Sevia USA. Our goal is to guide them and tell them what the urgency is, where we need financial assistance, and then all of them come together and share into a fund, and then we can funnel here through the United States and put into various pieces, whether it's litigation, which we're going to need, or various advocacy groups that are hurting for money. Some questions. That's it. That's a short summary, by the way. There's a lot of stuff that happened, but that's a short summary of how this group came into play.
So next whether something's coming back. Next steps from there, then, Sevia's going to go into the States. They're going to be putting money in. Are there more studies going to be coming up to me?
Yes. Part of the Sevia USA goal is to, what I suggested to them, because when I made the presentation on the pre-market application where it says about, clinical studies on raw materials and so, some of the stuff that they couldn't even fathom, right? I mean, material studies on stainless steel, on cathode wire, stuff like that. I suggested to them that they create reference files for pre-market, because we're going to have to file some kind of an application with the FDA, no matter what that ends up being. So they all use stainless steel, right? They all use glass tanks. They all use cathode wire. They all use nickel wire. So why have every individual company do studies on that? Raw materials, to me and Farsalinos have been bitching about this for the last 2 years, is extremely important. So let's all get the companies together and let's fund studies on raw materials. So let's do studies on tanks, on stainless steel, how it reacts with liquid. Those are studies that they can all use, and it doesn't interfere with their design ideas. Nobody can copy ideas from each other. If you're going to make a tank, you're going to use stainless steel, guess what? Most of the sourcing in China comes from the same place. So why not we do a scientific, a study on that stainless steel and how it reacts with liquid, and then all of the companies can use it. So yeah, absolutely. There's more scientific studies being planned. I am working on a raw material study now with Dr. F, a protocol to present to them, and it's something that they can all fund. That way, the cost is not burdensome on just one company.
It's kind of what I've been shouting for. We've all been shouting for donkey's ages. Studies into how to make these things better and work better, rather than how much damage do they do. This is the kind of stuff we've been needing for donkey's ages. And for my own part, I'm going to say congratulations. I've known about it for a while, and I've known what you've been doing, but I was sworn to secrecy. I've kept my mouth shut. I've been a good lad. It's a first. And I'm so pleased to see it coming to fruition. And the fact that it's going to go on. Listen, we'll have a UK Sevia as well, and an EU Sevia. More than happy to take the part in that. Absolutely right.
And I'd be more than happy to expand this, but we have to start somewhere, right? And we can't do everything overnight. Keep in mind that we need a trusting relationship with the Chinese manufacturers, simply because it's a different culture. So if we see some results here in the United States in the first 6 to 12 months, then we can expand and say, look how well it worked here. We're going to need help in the EU. Not that we have more time. I think that we have more time in the EU versus the FDA based on the pre-market application, obviously. But some of the work that we're going to do through Sevia USA can be used in the EU. And we're talking about reference files that you can use to file your application. So if you're going to reference within your application that, yes, the raw materials that I used to create this tank are referenced in this study that we did over here, it alleviates a lot of the costs from the manufacturers, and alleviates a lot of the costs of the distributors in the EU as well, too. Because keep in mind, you can cross-reference studies when you put in an application for your product. You don't have to do a specific material study on the tank that you're using if you've done it already, and if you've shared the cost with the other manufacturers. So it's going to benefit the EU as well too. Don't think that this is just the USA. We called it the Sevia USA obviously because I'm here, and the association will be based out of Washington D.C. We have hired Azim Chowdhury with a Keller and Heckman firm to create the association for us. And since they have that law firm has an office in Shanghai, and they have Chinese nationals that work for them, it was an easy fit for us, because now we have a good translation pathway as well too. So basically the way it's going to work is we need help in a certain sector. I will contact Azim. Azim will pass it on to Shanghai. Shanghai will translate it to Chinese and reach out to the manufacturers, get their approval, and then funnel it back to me. So it just basically creates a bridge where they understand exactly what's going on, which is another big problem that we have. Keep in mind that China does not have bodies of government like the TPD or the FDA or the EPA or the FTC or the FCC. So all this stuff is unknown to them. So when you're telling them that a body like the TPD can shut down vaping in the EU, or a body like the FDA can shut down vaping in the United States, they don't understand it. Why? Because that does not exist in China. So it's extremely important that we break it down and we explain it in a way that makes sense to them. And the severity of the case, depending on what it is, we have to understand them why they have to step in and help us. And again, I'm not putting all the blame on the Chinese manufacturers. You've seen it in the EU. We've seen it in the US here with liquid manufacturers, how the infighting goes and all the bitching and the competition. And I've told them that as there was well too. Don't look at the people that are sitting next to you as competition. Look at them as coexisters. In order for you to make it, and in fact, one of my taglines in my presentation was, if you guys don't want to be making vacuum cleaner parts next year, you need to come together and work on keeping vaping alive. And I think that really, toning it down like that and making them aware of the seriousness of the situation, I think it really brought them together. And the same thing has to happen with the liquid manufacturers here in the United States because, like I said earlier, one goes with the other. If we don't have good liquid, we can't have tanks, and vice versa. If we don't have tanks, we can't have good liquid. So both of those have to come together and create such a huge force that we can force some change to keep the products available.
Yeah, I think as I said, it's research to make them look better, and not look better, but be better and work better. And the beauty about peer-reviewed studies like this is that they go into what's known in academic circles as the literature. So, over here and the FDA, they all have access to the literature, and it's what's in the literature that guides decisions that get made. So this is a fabulous step forward. The study itself is a fabulous study, and what's going to go forward from there, with everybody coming together and working together, is I'm blown away by the whole idea. I think it's fabulous, and well done for getting it sorted. Yes, congratulations, kudos, and a round of applause from everybody in chat by the looks of it.
Thank you. It was a long time coming, and I apologize it took so long, but that's just the way it is. And I think that me and Phil have built a good trust relationship with the manufacturers the last 4 or 5 years, and I think that they take what we say very seriously. First step for us here in the United States is obviously connecting ourselves to a federal organization that can help us with HR 2058, moving the grandfather date. So we will join Vapor Technology Association, which is a newly formed association here in the United States that lobbies on a federal level for vapor products. We're also going to assist Indiana in their lawsuit financially, something that Azim started. The Indiana law is very bad, and we feel that we need to support them financially to see through that law does not become effective in the state of Indiana. And thirdly, we're going to support one of the hardest working men in vaping here in the United States, and I think that's Gregory Conley. I think the American Vaping Association needs funding. To me, Gregory is one of these guys that gets a lot of media and a lot of time on camera and on print, and I think we need to support that. We need more positive stories out there. We need to have a voice always in these bad negative stories. We need to have that one quote from him that debunks whatever that story is saying, and I think Gregory has done a good job, and I think that he can do a better job if he has more financial assistance. So those are the 3 things that we're going to launch with now with Sevilla USA, and then some studies obviously with protocols as they're coming from Dr. Fasalino, something that the ERF set out to do here in the United States, but unfortunately it hasn't been successful so far.
Indeed. Marco, are you there?
I am. I was listening quite intently there, and I've been watching chat as well. I think it's very important that the Big Four acknowledge that unless they actually do this themselves, then they are going to be making vacuum cleaner parts or defected hoverboards or something else. And there's a lot of workers out there that are making this stuff. And they'll have to either do something else or they'll be out of a job, they won't have a business. One of the criticisms that's maybe coming forward is that it's the industry doing it and not independent. But we've got to start somewhere, haven't we? And if we can get these tests and investigations done on not only the juice, but the coils, the tanks, the materials that they're made out of, it's got to be good.
Yeah, just chip in there, Marco. I mean, I saw those comments in chat as well. There's some concern there that because the industry is going to be, sort of funding this, there'll be the accusation of shills and what have you. Let's face it, that's going to happen anyway. But let's be blunt. I mean, that's the pharma model. The pharmaceutical companies are the people who develop the standard and so on, and the FDA, the equivalent of the people who make their own standard. So this is actually, this is the precedent. This is the established model. So I think it's absolutely right and proper. But it starts with the and just while I've got the mic, just say well done to Dimi as well, because that's one hell of an achievement, buddy.
Thanks, Dave. Let me address that issue real quick, as people saying that it's going to be biased from the manufacturers. An association is only powerful as its money. Let me just put that out there. So what do you think that the big tobacco companies do? What do you think that the pharmaceutical industry does? Okay, so you're only as big as much money as you have. And let's face it, no matter how much this industry has made in the United States and the EU from their localities, okay, so from the vendors from the EU, the distributors, the e-liquid manufacturers, no matter how much money that they've made, unfortunately, we haven't been able to bring that money together. So we have a lot of money, but it's thinned out, right? It's spaced out because we haven't been able to concentrate a financial effort that's going to be powerful. So in my opinion, when you have these manufacturers step up, and if we can get the liquid manufacturers step up, and at some point bring them together, right? At some point create an association that covers all parts of vaping, and it has the financial backing behind it, the government has no choice but to follow that as a protocol lead, because they don't know how to test electronic cigarettes. We do. Well, by we I'm talking about the industry, right? We know protocols that we can test on raw materials and liquids. So to do that, you have to be organized and you have to be financially powerful. And where's the most money? It's in China. Let me tell you something. I know these guys. I know these owners. I know these manufacturers. They've been friends of mine for a year. They have a lot of money. And they have a lot of money to spend as well, too. Don't get me wrong. But they're not going to invest in something that's not going to give them results, period. So we have to be very professional. We have to be very responsible with this chance that we were given by the Chinese manufacturers to do this. And we have to be able to put these pieces together and start somewhere, and then grow this thing into a monster that's going to be able to fight governments, big tobacco, and big pharmaceuticals.
Okay, I'm going to chip in here. One of the things that I read on forums for many years, and this is completely debunked all of this, was that China doesn't care. China's just jumping on a bandwagon. China's just making clones. And as soon as e-cigs disappear, they'll do something else. And your visits over there, Dimi, I think, have completely disproven that.
You're absolutely right. And listen, this China doesn't care. Yes, keep in mind that there's a lot of manufacturers in China that are not part of this group. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the people that there's a lot of companies that are making product that are not interested in the longevity of the product. Tomorrow they can change their factory and make it into making baby car parts, or change their factory to be producing, cell phones. Yes, that is true. But we're talking about the majority of the big major manufacturers in China. Like I said, Kanger, Innick & Smoke, and Aspire. These are companies that are dedicated to making it. These are engineers that own these companies that want to innovate on product, want to make better products, want to be around, and it's been very good to them as well too. It's been very profitable for them, so they don't want to see it go away. Okay, and if you want to take it deeper, for people like George from Innick, it's a tobacco harm reduction product. George quit smoking with this product. He's passionate about it, so there is some passion amongst those companies as well too. Keep in mind, it's not that China hasn't done anything in the game. Who has given China, though, a clear path on how we're going to fight this? Who has gone to China and sat down and said, listen, this is my goal, this is my purpose, this is my pathway, and I want you to join forces with me? Absolutely nobody. Yes, anybody can open up their hand and say, give me money, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's just not going to happen. It doesn't work like that. So we need to be able to present with them a game plan. And they have to have the trust in you to follow through with it, and that's what we're attempting to do.
Excellent. You got any more comments here?
All I would say is it seems to me to be probably the best way forward with regard to relations with China and the Chinese manufacturers. I would like to see more of the Chinese manufacturers come on board. I've got one or two avenues of approach on there that I might open. And there may be news of something more happening within the next 2 or 3 weeks that might well go some way towards addressing that. So I'm quite optimistic about this.
David, let me chime in here real quick. I want to make it perfectly clear. I don't want everybody to be on board in China, just like I don't want everybody that makes liquid to be on board here with the fight. Because there's some people out there that have either purposely or not purposely, hurt our industry. Okay? And just like there's some e-liquid manufacturers that are putting out copyright infringement or perceived child-friendly labels constantly, there's no future in that. Okay? From a regulatory standpoint, there's no future. Just like that, there's some Chinese manufacturers that don't give a crap. I don't want those people on board. I want the people to join forces that want to keep tobacco harm reduction available, that want to keep creating good product. Those are the people that I want to fight for, and those are the people that I want my coalition. I used to be 3-4 years ago when I started advocating, I wanted to be this guy that says, come on, guys, let's all come together. And guess what? This last year I realized, screw them. The people that want to be responsible and want to have a future in this industry, those are the people that I want to fight for, and that's who I want with me. The rest of them, you know, they can kiss my Greek butt. Sorry, put it in.
I'll pass on that one.
Sorry.
Well, no, actually, let me take that back. What have you got up your butt?
No, I don't have an e-cig, that's for sure.
Count me out. Not interested.
I've had a lot of accidents in my life, but there's no way that I will accidentally fall on my PV. That's for damn sure. It's never gonna happen.
No.
I'm not doing that verbal bullshit joke again. Oh no, I just did.
Yes. Dimmy, do the mods you use have nice rounded edges?
No, they do, but they're all mostly square, so that's definitely not a go.
You definitely don't need a flange on a mod that's going there.
One of these, really, doesn't it?
It's a perfect opportunity. Yeah. Dave, that looks painful. That looks like my doctor's big thumb, by the way. So this is a great opportunity for everybody to understand what we try to achieve. And I know we don't have the power of PR. We don't have the power of making it known to everybody, every little detail. But in summary, this is what we did. So for me, I don't want to take the credit. My credit was going over there and talking to them. That's it. The credit goes to the companies that are stepping up to do that. And I think it's extremely important for the vape community to have an open mind, to reach out to them, just drop them a thank you note. There's a Sevia USA Facebook page created already. The website is open, but it's still being worked on. Just give them a thank you and let them know, hey, thanks for joining in the fight. That goes 100 miles longer than saying, hey, China, get in the fight. Just a little simple thank you, and they appreciate that, because obviously it is some marketing behind it, don't get me wrong, but why not recognize? Okay, that's something that we failed to do here in the United States these past years. We keep talking about the bad players, but we never bring up the good players, right? We always go after the bad players. Oh, this guy has a bad label out there, and we all jump down his throat. Instead of ignoring them and not giving them any publicity, that way they can take that label and shove it, we should recognize those that are fighting for us and the ones that are stepping up. So to me, it goes longer for a vapor to say, hey, thank you, Kanger, or thank you, Aspire, for joining into the fight, and we're appreciative of what you're trying to do, and let's all work together in the future.
Hey.
There's a lot good history, and feeding back from somebody, I'm not sure who. There's a lot more that's good about this industry than is bad, and it's about time we played some of that up, really. Because you're right, it's the same on this side of the pond. I mean, we're very quick to sort of grab some vendor and hang them out to dry.
Yeah.
But you know, the vast majority of people are doing it right.
Yes, and unfortunately, we never give them the credit. You know, there's companies out there that have been doing diacetyl and AP testing for 2-3 years now. Nobody talks about that. All we're talking about is the bad players that are coming out with bad results. There's been people out there that have had proper labeling and proper warnings on the labels for 2 or 3 years. We never talk about that. All we talk about is oh, look at this. You know, it's in a honey bear bottle. You know, if you didn't talk about it, the honey bear bottle wouldn't be around. If the vapors weren't hand checking that shit, you know, on Instagram, it wouldn't be around. So let's focus on the ones that are passionate about this industry. Let's focus on the ones that are willing not only to put up their time, but put their hands in the pockets and fund this effort. And let's give credit to them, because eventually, guess what? Those are the only players that are going to be around anyway at some point. The rest of them will fade away.
We had a very similar thing, didn't we, when Totally Wicked launched the the TPD challenge, and a lot of people are decrying it, saying it's nothing more than a publicity stunt. There's a lot of that going around, and I dare say a lot of that happens as well in the States.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I was shocked last year when I came to you guys, and I talked to so many vendors and vapors over there that I didn't even know about the TPD.
Oh, yeah. I had the same experience.
Mind-blowing. And I can expect this from the vapor that's picking up from Totally Wicked stand somewhere that's just doing it to quit smoking. But within the community, within the passionate, the advanced users, the hobbyists, the people that are like all into vaping, you don't know what's happening because you have this attitude that, hey, guess what? I'm going to go like a gallon of nicotine and I have wire or whatever, and I'm set for the next 10 years. Well, that's not the attitude to have, right? I mean, I was shocked at the level of ignorance, and nothing against. I'm not. This happens here in the United States as well too. But how you do not know that there's an article that's going to eliminate vaping as we know it. Who do you want to blame for that? Maybe we have to blame us, the industry. Maybe we have to blame the vendors. Maybe we have to blame the vapors themselves. Let's stop blaming. Focus on the ones that are passionate, that are putting that information in front of you. Support those people that are putting that information in front of you, and join forces and fight with them. That's the only way we're going to win. Period.
Well said.
I was going to mention about people walking away when someone tries to tell them about it, but taking on board what you said about not blaming people, I'm not going to mention that.
Yeah.
If I was going to say, I did another show on Saturday night. I was guesting on a show, and I was pleased to see, because I got a message back from Andy Morrison, who takes care of sign-ups for the NNA, that there was well over 20 people signed up immediately the show had finished, and there's been more going on over the weekend. Apparently, I might have spoiled his Sunday a little bit, and that's fine. Andy wants his Sundays spoiling, and we want people signing up to the NNA, and thank you to everybody that did. Keep it going, keep on doing it, because it's vitally important that we get people that are passionate about this, that do want to advocate and are prepared to have their voices heard, because without that, we don't stand as good a chance of winning the battle. I mean, I've always felt that we're going to win it, but I've always known it's going to be a 10-year fight, and we've just got to keep on keeping on. We've got to not step back, and we've got to keep that positive outlook and know that we will get there. And what I'm hearing about Sevilla USA, the studies that are going on, this is all ammunition that we're going to be able to use, and I'm so far behind it. I'm right with it. It's brilliant, and thank you so much.
I saw a comment in the chat about from Leanna about she's tired of the apathetic vapor. Yes, I'm tired too, but let's forget about the apathetic vapor. And again, I think I've known Dave and you guys for a very long time. I know how passionate you are about it, and I think that we've all made a huge mistake. We've tried to bring everybody together because we always open up our arms and say, you guys, everybody, even the apathetic vapor has to come with us. And I think that we've been focusing our energy on the wrong way of handling this. We need to take all of our passion, all of our energy, and find those that are not apathetic. And those people need to come together. That's where we should be putting our positive energy in. You're not going to get everybody to be as, psychotic as we are about it, because we really are. Not everybody's going to be that way. So let's stop trying to bring everybody into the fold, and let's try to focus on bringing everybody into the fold that can actually do a damn thing. Those are the people that we should be focused on, and I think it's better to have a smaller portion that are very active that can do something than to have a large majority that is useless.
I would agree. But I will say this, and I've got to say this because I believe it's true. The audience that we have there tonight, I believe they're active. I believe they're good supporters. I believe they will make their voices heard. And that's the thing that we know about VTTV viewers. They are the cream of the crop. There, I've said it.
Nope, that's why I came here.
I know.
And there's 90 of them in tonight. There's 90 good advocates there. Good voices.
90 good advocates can do damage to 1 million apathetic vapors.
Yeah, there are a couple of dodgy ones, let's just be clear.
There's always a few dodgy ones.
I think one of the other issues, though, is that people that are coming into vaping, they're making that switch. Not all of them come online. Not all of them go into forums. Not all of them watch stuff like this. So it's trying to capture the new vapers, so they understand more about what's happening, especially that they're coming into it and they want to continue with it, but they don't know what's going on. And you know, it's amazing that there are so many new people coming on board. But if they don't have an online presence, they don't spend a lot of time online. If they're of an age where they just don't do online stuff, then they will never get this information, and that's the thing that we really could help with getting it out.
Well,
the thing is, well, if you think about
there's a couple of problems there. I blame a lot of the vendors for this, because a lot of the vendors just don't want to bring that up with new vapors. It's very hard for you to sell a $100 setup or a 60-pound setup to somebody and tell them, hey, guess what? Give me 60 pounds. In 2 months, that shit might be banned. So I get it. There's a problem with the vendors getting the information out. But the biggest problem is that we're not big enough. We don't have the financial support to have mainstream media presence to make them aware of what is happening. And this is where Sevia can help. I think if we grow this into something that's bigger in a financial sense, we can buy mainstream media time to be able to get the word out, because all we're seeing is the negative. All we're seeing in the headlines is the bad stuff, and we need to get them made aware of what's coming. And the only way you can do that is financially having enough of a budget to be able to have your face in mainstream media.
Yeah, I was going to say it kind of harks me back to the CB thing that we had over here, something the States had, and that was fine, and we were battling like hell to get it legalised and get the right frequencies and what have you. And as I recall, because I was quite active in that, there was about 15 people up and down the country that were actively involved. Loads of people paying lip service, but about 15 of us that were actively involved in getting legalisation done, and actually it worked out quite well. There was no internet, there was no Twitter, there was none of that. It's going back, was 1979 when we started doing it all. And yeah, a few well-placed, good people can really do a good job. If they're backed up by a slightly larger group, but by no means all, that can lend the weight to the argument and kind of do things locally. That's when we see real results. And now that we've got this whole involvement of China coming on board, that can only be good, because that's where the money is. And these days, it takes money to fight everything. You can't do it on a shoestring budget anymore.
I'll give you an example. Everybody saw the story with Leonardo DiCaprio vaping at the SAG Awards the other day, right? Did you guys see that? It was all over the place, right? So the first question that I get from vapers is like, oh, what is he doing for advocacy? Well, guess what? Give me $1 million, and I guarantee you that Leonardo DiCaprio will be talking about advocacy tomorrow. He might even come on Vapor Trails TV. But that's how it works. I mean, for crying out loud, there's nothing wrong with it. All right? If I go back to the Chinese manufacturers and I say, hey, can we fund this guy for a year and see if, we can get this guy to talk about vaping in public? They might say yeah, because the Chinese are, they're just elaborate like that. They'd love to have that. They'd be fighting whose device would be using. But anyway, I mean, you know what I'm getting at. So that costs money, whether you like it or not. It's not about tobacco harm reduction when it comes to people like that. It's about, and there's nothing wrong with funding it for our cause, because we're doing it for our cause, right? There's nothing wrong with these companies coming together and say, let's put some money in the pot and let's give Leo, a song and a prayer and, a couple $100,000 a year to represent our brand. There's nothing wrong with that. I guarantee you that the public perception would change on vaping if we had him speaking on our behalf. But it's going to cost, and who's going to foot the bill?
That's exactly the point.
Yeah, it's a very fair point. I mean, when you consider our opponents in the tobacco and pharma companies, they're not adverse to splashing a few quid, are they, to get the message out?
A lot. California is spending $75 million over the next 5 years to combat vaping. $75 million over the next 5 years. Chicago invested $12 million this year for the Vaping Truth campaign, and you're seeing billboards and ads on all over the trains and the subways in Chicago to combat vaping. Guess what? That's the only way we can win as well, too. We have, you fight fire with fire. They're spending money on that. Let's spend money on some other stuff. And some of the stuff that social media, for us, would work better than what Chicago is doing, what LA is doing, what California is doing, because we have the power of social media. Because you imagine, Leo has more followers on Twitter than the president. So for us, getting him on board and funding him would probably result 10 times the results that they do with less money. But we have to be able to suck it up and say, this is the way we're going to do it, and stop saying, well, he should do it because, vaping is good. No, he's not going to do it for that. Stop. It's just not going to happen. All right. Just the fact that he took a picture with an MVP to me was huge, right? But you're not going to, he's not going to sit there and defend you in national TV or on the Today Show unless you financially back him.
Or put some money to his foundation, because he's got a foundation, hasn't he? So,
sure.
Something like that. So it's not going to actually physically get the cash. It'll be going to something even better. So I understand totally where you're coming from. And that's what the big companies do. They give their products to celebrities for free. They give them a huge stack of cash, and they say, this is great. And we have certain doctors who work for pharmaceutical companies who will go on TV and they'll say, this is really bad for you. And then you find out that there are the medical spokesman for this company or that company. So that is more underhand, in my opinion, than it would be paying Leonardo DiCaprio $1 million.
I totally agree. I saw a comment in the chat that they're spending $75 million of our money. That's absolutely true. This is taxpayer money. This is money that they're getting from the MSA. So we're actually paying for it. In fact, I had that joke in China because I was talking about the FDA and the possibility that we're going to have to litigate and sue the FDA. The FDA has 85 attorneys on staff, right, full time. So we're paying for those as taxpayers of the United States. So if we sue them, not only we have to gather money to sue them, but we're actually giving money for them to counter the suit that we're going to be doing. So we're paying twice for these attorneys, one to defend them and one to go after them. It's grim and it's unfortunate, but that's the reality. Yeah, it's bad. The Chinese didn't get that joke, by the way. It's hard to translate. By the way, I just have to say that about the Chinese. It's very hard to speak in a crowd of 120 manufacturers. Majority don't speak English. Because, me and Phil, we're ball busters, right? We want to throw some jokes here and there. You just want to break up a little bit, the monotony and the seriousness of the conversation. So I would have like a joke in my presentation. And
while you're saying that, I'm going to roll some video that you took there. I haven't had the opportunity, so.
Go ahead. So I would have I would do my presentation, then I have a really nice joke, and I have it set up. So I would do the joke, and then there would be like dead silence for 45 seconds until the translator translated the joke, and if the translator did a good job, I'd get a laugh. But it was really, really awkward sitting for about a minute, waiting for the reaction. It's like a comedian just completely bombing on stage. It was the most awkward feeling ever. But a lot of them do have a good sense of humor as well too, and the fact that we've me and Phil we're very social with them. We drink, which they like drinking, and we can hang, so they really appreciate that. So we've been able to create that relationship where what we say, they will take it seriously. It's now how do we deliver on that? We promised, we have to deliver, and that's the end game. If we're not able to deliver, then we failed our job.
At the moment, we're seeing you standing at a podium. We can't actually see the audience at all there. But you kind of look a bit like a stand-up comic there, but there's no audio, so
it was really, really awkward. They had my presentation translated into Chinese, which was good. So they were able to understand some of the complexities of the pre-market tobacco application as it's written here in the United States. But one of the things that I was very careful to make them understand is that the pre-market tobacco application, was written for cigarettes. It was not written for vapor products, and which is a big litigation case for us as well too. If we have to go into court with the FDA, is that the pathway that you've given us does not fit the product description, right? So okay, you're going to classify it as a tobacco product, but the product is not what the pre-market tobacco application was written for. It was written for to keep new tobacco products off the market, and now you're giving us that same pathway for a product that does not fit the description of what its original intent was, and that was a big scary thought for them. In fact, a couple of the questions that I took afterwards kept mentioning, but this is a vapor product, it's not a tobacco product. And I said, well, in fact, my joke was, hey, listen, number one, I didn't write this. I'm just explaining it to you, so don't take it out on me. And number two, I'm Greek, so obviously the U.S. Constitution has nothing to do with me. I didn't write that either. But I think again, it's that that lack of communication of trying to explain to them of what the rule is, which I think that advocacy groups and people in the past have done a poor job relating to, whether it's EU or whether it's US. So it's about driving the point, making it easy to understand, toning it down a little bit. Don't get too technical with them, and let them understand exactly what is happening. And I think that we accomplished that.
Excellent stuff. Right, I've taken the video off there now. We might show some more of that at some point, or you're going to do us a video anyway, aren't you, of your trip over there at some point? So.
Yes, well, we have to kind of vet some of the pieces out, some of the sensitive information out as well too. So Phil's kind of working on editing all the videos as well too, and we'll let you know when those will come out. Maybe we'll come on with Phil and talk a little bit about more of that in the future, because there was a lot of stuff that we saw from innovation, a lot of products. We visited 7 factories while we're there in 5 days, which is that was a feat in itself, after drinking all night and then getting up 9 o'clock in the morning and doing tour factory visits. One thing that I do have to mention about products, because I know everybody's asking, if we're all chasing the dragon, right? What's new? What's coming out? I can tell you that the work that we've done in the last year with Phil, trying to consult with them on products for smokers, has really paid off, because we saw from all 3 big manufacturers, Kanger, Inniken, and Aspire, a lot of products geared towards smokers. I think that they've seen that the sub-ohm market is starting to slow down a little bit. Recycling customers, those sales are going to drop a little bit. We need to go back to the basics and try to create products that are going to bring more smokers in. So we saw from all 3 companies really good starter kits, really good. Aspire has a really nice device coming out that's both mouth to lung and both lung inhale as well too, all in one, which was very, very impressive. So we're very pleased to see that direction. Now, how do we get the retailers to carry them? My biggest problem is products like the Endura. The Endura T18 from Inniken is a great starter kit. It's a great device to give to a smoker. It mimics the draw. It performs really well. It's plug and play, no digital screen. You open up the tank, you top fill it, put it on, press the button, and you vape. Guess what? The vape stores here are not carrying. They're not bringing them in, because they say our customers don't want them. And I'm like, what's the matter with you? Bring smokers in and give them this kit. If your customer's only buying 3 milligram and sub-ohm tanks, then we've failed. We're not doing our job. So it's one thing for us to push China to make good products for the smokers. Then the guys over here, the distributors in the shops, not only here but in the EU, need to carry this product, and they need to make it comfortable for smokers to come in and try it as well too. So a lot of good product coming out from there. And I saw temperature control done right coming soon, but that's all I can say about it. Temperature control finally getting to the perfection point, and not the dice guessing game, as Phil calls it, with the current temperature controls on the market.
To be fair, that's a pretty fast-moving market, though. It's come on leaps and bounds pretty quickly.
Yes, and the only reason why we've been able to do that is because we don't have the regulatory burden. Yeah. And that's going to come to an end. So we need to get as much innovation as we can out now before that slows down the growth. And some of the companies will go out of business in China, just like some of the companies will go out of business around the world. So we need to make sure that we keep pushing for technology. For me, we need to go back to the basics. It's gotten way out of hand as far as temperature control, wires, TCR values. I mean, come on, for crying out loud. I can't give that to my wife. I can't give that to Phil's mom and say, hey, guess what? You need to get 316L stainless steel, and then you need to go into the device and you need to set the TCR value. It's just not going to happen. You're not going to get people to transition. So ease of use, longevity of battery, satisfaction, nicotine delivery, those are the things that I think all of them are looking back now. But we have to create the outlets for people to sell them as well too, to bring more smokers in, and stop recycling the existing customers, because guess what? There's no future from a business standpoint. There's no future in that. And then from a tobacco harm reduction standpoint, listen, there's 40 million smokers in the United States. Why? Why are there 40 million smokers in the United States? This is the best invention in the history of mankind. Why are there still 40 million? Guess what? We've done a poor job of bringing them in, introducing them to vaping, and we don't have the right devices or the right liquids and the nicotine contents to bring them in.
Right, are we ready now for another seamless link? Because we've got to crack on, because we're nearly at the end. New products. Mr. Kidson wants a new product. Dimmy, you might want to have some input on this.
Sure.
The 2 minute max tank. I'll explain when the VT's rolling.
I was still trying to understand what the max tank is.
I'll explain how this is playing.
For the last 48 hours what a max tank is. Nobody's told me.
I've got 6.5 minutes. 6.5 minutes to explain this. Here we go.
On last week's show, Dave Kitson offered up a challenge to Matt Garish, Dave Dorn and myself, and that was, what tank would we recommend replaces his sub-tank usage? Yeah. And we've all picked one tank that we're talking about. Yes. So my recommendation for you, Mr. Kitson, is this. It's the Smok TFV4 tank. Oh yes. And why is that? Well, here's the thing. It's got a large capacity. You can put a dual coil, a triple coil, a quad coil, or a sextuplet coil in there. You can get Clapton coils for it, or if you really want to, like I do, you can build your own. Now, I do know that one of the criteria for Mr. Kitson was he doesn't want to build his own coils. He's kind of past that these days, and he prefers to use OEM coils, which is fine. That's perfectly fine. Personally, myself, I like to build my own still, and you'll see more of that coming up through the shows anyway. So that's my recommendation, the Smok TFV4. What else can it do? Well, you can slide the top like so and fill. When you finish filling, push it back. Job done. What can I say? How easy is that? You don't have to unscrew it. You don't have to unscrew little screws or do anything else with it. You just slide it and put it back. Simplicity itself. It's a good tank, easy to clean, easy to put together, multiple versions of the coils available, including RBA. Smok TFV4. It's the one for you, Mr. Kitson.
So Dave Kitson asked us last week if we would submit new tanks for him to try. He's a very big fan of the sub-tank, as am I myself. So he put us a challenge together asking, his criteria were that he didn't want to have the hassle of rebuilding, he wanted pre-made coils, he wanted a top filling device, he wanted a direct lung inhale vape, budget not really such an issue. So, having thought long and hard about this, and I thought, there's the UL Crown, the Rafale or Raffle or Falafel, what you want to call the thing. There's the Zephyrus. There's lots of tanks out there. And then I happened to see the very next day, so I ordered one, and there's full VT on this. You might have seen it already, and you might yet to see it. I don't know. Kanga have released a version of the sub tank which is top fill, and it's called the top tank, and there it is. You can just take the top off and fill it, and it's great. I have here the stock nickel coil that it comes with, and it's vaping nicely. Nice thick liquid, 82% VG. So Dave, I submit to you the Top Tank Mini. Other sizes are available.
Right, Mr. Kitson, here is my suggestion for you, and it is the UL Rafale. This is the beast. Very, very quickly to go through it. It's a top fill tank. These are 2 fill orifices, and in order to fill it, you simply unscrew the drip tip, in which this case it's got to be a mouthpiece, and then your bottle of choice simply slips in and you squeeze. Up it fills, and then when you're done, you screw the mouthpiece back down again. Airflow control is here at the bottom. It will go from good God almighty I can't suck it in clicky stages to oh that's a nice little hole to I like a slightly bigger hole to oh my God I can get a lungful in no time flat. The coils are a dual parallel coil is what it says, and the bottom end is gold plated. Have a quick look. Let's pull one out of this nice little tube, because this is how they come. parcelled in a tube. And this is the coil. It looks a lot like a crown coil, but it isn't. Gold plated contact. Look at the size of the airflow hole that's up there. And if I take this little condom off the top and you look down the edge, you can see a beautifully wound dual stainless steel 316 core. Now you'll see there's a lot of reflection here. That's because there's a metal thing at the top. That's all well and good as well, and really rather nice. And if I show you down the end of the drip tip, I don't know whether you'll be able to see. There you go. You can see that little bar that's coming down across the drip tip. Yeah, it's where are we? 12 and 6 o'clock now ish. Yeah. Well, at the other end of that, it's at 3 to 9 o'clock. So that stops any spit back that you might get if you get it wrong. I'm running this, young sir, at, what am I running it at? I'm running it at 100 watts in temperature control on a variety of different mods. And it has to be said, it performs rather nicely. If you are looking for cloudage, and I suspect you are, then this will give you cloudage. Let me show you. Zero spit back, fabulous flavour, acres of vapour, loads of airflow. In my view, the UL Rafali is what Mr. Kitson wants.
And there we go, there's the Dave Kitson Tank Challenge. Dave.
Hello.
Well, your thoughts?
My thoughts. Okay, right. First of all, thanks to all three of you. That was for the effort, basically. We were just chatting there while the VT was playing, weren't we, Matt? And we're saying there's actually a plethora of good tanks out there to choose from there. And I dare say that whichever one of those tanks I picked would probably do the job. But I singled one out. I shall go through them in order. Marco, the TFV4. The way the top opens, that's brilliant, isn't it? I really do like that. The top tank, however, you know I'm a fan of the sub tank. I'm up to my knees in the damn things here. I love sub tanks. So the idea of a sub tank that fills from the top, pretty good. I've got a cupboard full of coils, so that has a lot of appeal as well. But, and this is going to irritate you, I'm going to go for the simple reason that has got a really natty top in it. I think in truth what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a top tank so I can use up all my old coils. But also I'm definitely going to get one of these raffly things, because I've just got to check that out, that screw top. But Dimmy question as well.
I've been testing out some new sub tanks, and I do have the new top tank with actually the ceramic coil that I picked up in China, the new one that the Kangaroo's putting out. I'm not a big fan of ceramic. I'm not saying it's good or bad. We've seen some testing. It appears to be good. In my opinion, anything that's wet is good.
Fair enough.
But if your coil is wet, most likely everything is okay with it. I'm not happy with it because it needs heat, and I'm a low wattage vapor. But the Cleto tank from Aspire for the money has been performing really good for me. And obviously, that tube inside will cut down a little bit on the flavor. Anytime that you have 60 watts and that much air going over the coil, you're going to be affected by flavor. But to me, the two things that I see in a sub tank is ease of use when filling, and the Cleto is a top filling tank. And then one of the things that really bothers me in some of the top tanks, some of the top filling sub-ohm tanks, is the pressure that it creates. So you take off the top and you fill it, and then you close it, and the liquid's kind of forced inside the coil. And then that first pull, or the first 3 or 4 pulls, either get juice in your mouth, or it's not a satisfying vape, or it gurgles. Yeah, with a Cleto, I have not experienced that so far. I prefer the 0.4 ohm coil that I have here on the H-Cigar VT133, which sucks, by the way. So if you're thinking about picking this up, I'll give you a quick review. This is the only review that you have to hear.
Oh, nice.
So there you go. That takes care of that.
Quality.
Get that out of the way. It's an IPv4 case that's been recycled to house the HR cigar 133. Anyway, I'm veering off topic, but back to the sub tanks. So the Cleto, to me, for the money, is probably a really good choice for you when it comes to sub-ohm tanks, and also the super tank from Tobago. Both of these tanks are the cheapest tanks on the market, by the way.
Yeah. But they don't have that fancy turn the mouthpiece drip tip and the little thing moves, do they?
Exactly. See, look, it seems to me that some of the most inexpensive tanks on the market work the best. So let's not buy the hype. Most of the new sub-ohm tanks that are coming out now, they perform good for what they do. If you like sub-ohm vaping and clouds, they perform. But why spend double the money and get the same effect or even a better effect from a cheaper tank? So don't always buy it for the hype.
I'll answer that question because it's got a turny thing that moves.
Plus, until of course it breaks and then you can't feel it. But if you've got a TFV4, it just slides.
Yeah, but the thing about the clitoris is you can't find it.
Although it does stay wet.
Right, I'm going to try and wrestle control of this chaos.
This is another thing. The TV4 tank, I've seen it. When I vaped on it, I would literally push the button and take 3 puffs, and the liquid level would go halfway down the tank as well too. So you have to take consumption of liquid at some point in the equation. When you're vaping 20-30 mils a day and you're buying liquid, it doesn't make any sense to vape. So let's rethink a little bit here what we're trying to achieve by using these tanks as well too.
Right, let's draw a line under that. Dimmy, you want to have a quick chat about eFest, didn't you?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of posts about eFest lately, and I just want to touch on this briefly. Phil would do a little bit more extensive in his video, but when I was in China, we wanted to go see eFest, the battery factory, and they declined us. And we didn't make a post about this publicly because it wasn't as public as the Yeehee thing, which they also declined us to go see the production. But we started asking some questions, and we talked to some people that have been in China in the e-cig business for 7 or 8 years now, and they told us some stories that I can't confirm or didn't. This is secondhand. So we heard some stories about their battery and their battery production. All I can tell you is that for me personally, I will never buy an eFest battery again. So I highly recommend to vapers to really pay attention to where their battery suppliers are coming for. Look on the forums. Look for Mooch on the ECF. He has a lot of great information to assure that you're using good quality batteries. There's a lot of crap coming out there. The factory that did open up their doors was Aspire, that actually does make 18650 batteries, and we were able to go inside and film and look at the production and actually see test results on the batteries that they're making. Okay, so anybody can slap a sticker on a battery and say 3000 mAh 40 amp. It's not true. Okay, so from the information that we got when we were in China, and like I said, Phil would talk a little bit more extensively on it. From the information that I got, I will never recommend any store or any person to use an eFest battery again.
Just picking up on that, did you say that Aspire actually manufacture batteries? They don't just rewrap them?
Aspire makes their own batteries. They actually bought a factory, created a production for 18650 batteries, and they do other batteries too. They do some lipos and stuff like that. So they're starting to use their own battery technology within their devices, which I think is a good idea because it integrates everything top to bottom. I think one of the things that we suggested through Sevilla USA, creating some standards, which I think are lacking in China, right? And I think a lot of them understand. I'll give you an example. We have asked for a standard on color coding the coils. So we went to the manufacturers and we said, listen, if you're going to create 5 different wires, those coils should be color coded evenly amongst the community, amongst the industry. That way a vapor does not get confused. Nickel is blue, guess what? Every damn manufacturer should make their nickel coils blue. If you're going to have Canthal red, every manufacturer should have red. That's one of the things. The other thing is battery. If you're going to sell a device, sell it and mark on your package what battery you suggest. But if you're going to suggest a battery that you don't make, you better make sure that battery's been tested with your device and you're recommending a good battery. And you're going to see those warnings on packages coming soon out of China. So that's part of the standardization that we're trying to create, even with the manufacturers, to show some responsibility and some ethics in the devices that we're putting out. Okay, there's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of miseducation from the vendors that are selling these products. There's a lot of bad batteries on the market. The manufacturers themselves should be responsible as well to suggest and recommend batteries that can assure the safety of the people that are using it. And I guarantee you that EFES is not one of them.
Okay.
Well, that directly puts the onus on the consumer to purchase the right batteries. We go over this time and time again. You need to get a battery that's going to work in your device safely and efficiently. And if it costs you a couple of quid extra, then it costs you a couple of quid extra. That's my opinion.
There's an easy answer to that. No device should ship without the recommended batteries.
I agree.
Bottom line.
And I think that's what Aspire's trying to do, by the way. I think Aspire and the new devices that I was telling you that are coming out, I think they're going to, I know, especially this one device that I saw that I was very impressed with, will have an 18650 battery with it. And it'll be an 18650 that they manufacture.
Right, I'd love to talk more about this, but unfortunately we're out of time. So, do you want to say good night, folks?
Good night, folks.
Yeah, right, night, Dave.
Good night, folks.
Night, Dave.
Night.
We will catch you all very soon, and we'll be getting Dimitris Agrafiotis on as much as we can. Isn't that right, Dimitris?
Anytime that I can join you, I'll be here.
Excellent. Well,
for having me.
You want to say good night, Demi?
Good night, everybody. Thanks for having me, and I'm glad to be part of the team. I can say it live now instead of just my video. So it's a pleasure working with you guys, and I look forward to the next 2 or 3 years of us fighting together.
Nicely said. And don't forget to join us again on Thursday night, where Mr. Dorn will be releasing a trailer fairly shortly, I'm sure. Right, we've got to go. So, where's the button? There's the button. There's the button. Night.